In the heart of a dry land, where the sun burned like fire and the trees stood like bones, there lived a king no one dared to look in the eyes. His name was King Baruti, but people called him the Lion with no mercy. He ruled a village called Congo Valley, where children cried quietly, and birds stopped singing when he walked by. His skin was dark like the night, and his eyes sharp like a hunter's spear. He wore a robe made from lion skins and spoke only when angry, which was most of the time. One hot morning, a small rabbit came to the village. His name was Kiko. He was no bigger than a baby's foot, with soft gray fur and big ears that stood like drums. Kiko was hungry, lost, and tired. He had no idea he had stepped into the most feared place in all the land. The rabbit hopped near the king's garden and began to nibble on a yam. That yam belonged to King Baruti. Suddenly, the sky darkened. A shadow covered Kiko. The king stood over him. "You dare eat my food?" the king growled. His voice rumbled like thunder. Kiko trembled. I didn't know, Your Highness. I was hungry." "Hungry?" the king laughed coldly. "Then you will eat fear." He ordered his guards to lock the rabbit in a small cage made from bones and thorns. The whole village watched, their eyes wide, but no one spoke. Fear lived deep in their hearts. This king had burned homes for less. But Kiko was no normal rabbit. That night, as the moon rose like a pillar in the sky, Kiko whispered a plan to a mouse who lived under the king's chair. "Tell the birds to fly," Kiko said. "Tell the trees to lean. I will not die here." And so began the night of tricks. As the moon shone brighter, the village grew still. The king slept in his grand palace, unaware that the night was about to change forever. Kiko, the small rabbit, sat in his cage, thinking hard. The guards had laughed at him when they locked him up. They didn't know he was smarter than they thought. His tiny heart beat fast, but his mind raced faster. He needed help. The mouse, named TMU, scurried up the palace walls and whispered to the birds hiding in the trees. "Fly as fast as the wind. The king is weak tonight." The birds, who were once afraid of the king's evil power, looked at each other. But TMU's words made them bold. They flew, one by one, to the highest branches and started singing songs of freedom, songs that no one had dared to sing for years. The sound filled the air, gentle yet strong, reaching the ears of the villagers. Kiko wiggled his nose and called to the wind. He had heard old stories of the wind being kind to those in need. The breeze started to blow, softly at first, then stronger. It pushed at the bars of his cage, bending them like twigs. Inside the palace, King Baruti awoke with a start. The singing was strange to him. He had forgotten what it felt like to hear peace. He rose angrily, his robe trailing behind him, and stomped out to the garden. "What is this madness?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the village. He looked up at the trees, where the birds sang louder, their melodies reaching the heavens. The wind blew fiercely, as though the earth itself was in rebellion. Then, to the king's surprise, the cage with Kiko inside began to shake. The bars bent further, and with one last push from the wind, they broke. Kiko, the small rabbit, hopped free. "Stop him," the king roared, but his words were lost in the sudden gust that swept through the village, making his throne shake. Kiko hopped in front of him, his fur puffed up, his eyes bright with courage. "You may be strong, Baruti, but even the fiercest king is weak when the land speaks," Kiko said, his voice calm but firm. The king stared at him, his fury burning. But something in Kiko's eyes made him hesitate. For the first time, he felt fear, not from the rabbit, but from something much deeper, the power of the land, the trees, the birds, and the wind. "The animals have been quiet for too long," Kiko continued. "Your time is ending, King Baruti. The land does not belong to you. It belongs to all who live upon it." The wind howled around them. The birds circled above. The earth seemed to shake beneath their feet. And then, something happened that no one expected. The king's heart softened. His eyes lost their cold edge. "I have been cruel," King Baruti admitted in a quiet voice, the fear in his words strange to hear. "I have forgotten what it means to live with the land." The wind slowed, the birds quieted, and Kiko sat, watching the king. For the first time in years, there was silence in the valley. But it was not a silence born of fear. It was a silence born of change. From that day forward, King Baruti ruled with a new heart. He listened to the land, to the people, and to the animals. And Kiko, the little rabbit, became the kingdom's wise advisor, the one who showed the king that even the smallest creatures could bring down the biggest of tyrants. And in the village, no one ever feared the king again. The end.